do Q&A. Vinny, thank you so much for your presentation here. I'm very, very glad to have you here. I know you a little bit. I know how smart you are, how is your intensity when you coach, how you are so precise. And the first time that you were in Brazil, people were very impressive with you, with your skills. For me, it was not new to hear about this, but I really understand how your commitment with the coaching process and everything that you have been doing. It's our pleasure.
Thank you guys so much. I'm very flattered, Felix. Thank you. You're going to make me blush. But I'm very fortunate to work at Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning. And when I started as an intern and I got to surround myself with such great coaches like Coach Kevin Carr, Brendan Rarick, and Coach Boyle, of course, I get to learn from them every single day. So that's how I get to develop. So what you guys are doing today is learning from people and trying to get better. And we're all here because we want to provide a better service for our clients and for our athletes. So we want to make this interactive. So we want you to ask questions. If you want me to explain anything more, put it in the comment section, and we're going to make this more integrative as opposed to me just lecturing. I'll go through my slides, but then I want to talk about it and I want to have a discussion with you guys. So Felix touched on it a little bit, but yeah, I've worked at Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning for the past 7 years. I've worked with Kevin and Brendan in the CFSC team for the past 4 or 5 years. So at MBSC, I wear a lot of different hats. I'm part of the assistant manager with our second location in Middleton. I coach our athletes. I write the programs for our adult clients. And I'm also the internship coordinator. So I deal with a little bit of everything, which helps me get exposure and experience in all different facets of strength conditioning. So Felix, should I share my screen and we can get into it?
Yes, perfect. Share your screen, please. Okay.
So let's go to this. Let's see if this works. Can you guys see that?
Perfect, yes.
Perfect. And then I'll start from the beginning. Okay. So again, this is a topic that is really important to me, and it should be important to everyone because we all have parents and grandparents who are older, and we want them to be healthy and we want them to live long possible and have as much joy in their life as possible. So today we're going to talk about the importance of training as you get older and how crucial our job is as strength and conditioning coaches to provide the best service and in the aging process. One area in particular that we're going to focus on is fall prevention training. So who here has ever feared that someone that they love or really care about might take a bad fall and get seriously injured? So maybe it is your grandparent or a close friend of yours, or maybe it's a client that you're currently training now. I'm going to play a video next, which is pretty graphic, but it kind of really hits home when you see it. This man's walking his dog and he doesn't see his feet and he hits the ground. This lady is going to turn and she's going to fall and hit the ground. Now, whether you're 17 years old or you're 70 years old, you fall with the same speed. And what's even scarier is you hit the ground, right, with the same amount of impact and force as a 17-year-old. But would you feel confident that you could train someone like that? Or would you be thinking, like most trainers, like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this person. They can't do anything. How am I going to get through this next hour or continue to program for this person? So what we're going to do for the next 30, 40 minutes is shed some light on an extremely important topic, is how to effectively train this population to prevent falls like that from happening so no one gets hurt. Before we go too far, right, I don't want to offend anyone and I don't want to call anyone old. This is the definition on Google. Anyone over the age of 65, roughly equivalent to retirement, is said to be getting old age. So if anything, guys, be mad at Google. Don't be mad at me. I'm not calling you old, okay? We're going to jump right into some statistics of falls. Falls are the second leading cause of unintentional deaths in the United States. 1 in every 4 Americans over the age of 65 report taking a fall. 1 in every 4. 77% of falls occur at home. 44% walking or just in their everyday lifestyle, in their kitchens, in their living rooms. 28% falls occur from just getting up and down in a seated position. This is all from the National Council for Aging Care from 2017. So a couple of years back, but there was 800,000 people hospitalized last year due to a fall. These are crazy numbers. These are so scary when you think about how big these numbers are. And no one talks about this stuff. So this is an American movie, 40-Year-Old Virgin. If you haven't seen it, you should need to see it. But it talks about, is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it? There was a study done that showed after the age of 65, your lower body power declines 3.5% a year after the age of 65. You also lose 1 to 2% of strength after the age of 65. So what does that mean? That means even though we're losing strength, right? We talk about sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle. We're also losing power almost twice as fast. We're really, really screwed as we get older if we need to move quickly. Right? Maybe you're trying to catch the bus as you get older and you can't get there. Or you need to run into the house really quick to answer the phone. But I know these numbers sound bad, but what these numbers don't show is fear. As we get older, we live completely different lifestyles. Our older clients and our grandparents, they avoid activities completely because they think that they won't be able to stop themselves from getting hurt. Or maybe they're going to fall on the ground and they don't even know how to get up. As we age, we stop doing things like skips, jumps, running, playing games, having fun, or playing sports because we think we're too old. We think we're going to get hurt, which is just a terrible, terrible mindset to have, and we don't know when that happens. So, are you at risk? There was a research study done on patients over the age of 65 to see if they were at risk of a fracture, a bone break, if a fall took place. They were giving at the beginning a questionnaire of 5 simple questions. Number 1, do you get tired easily or fatigued easily? At the end of your day, do you feel run down? Do you feel lethargic? And you didn't even exercise that day, or you didn't do any physical activity, just in your daily life. Are you tired? Number 2, can you walk up and down a flight of stairs? Or do you have to hold on to the guardrail? Or do you need someone to help you up? Aerobic, so they asked them, can you walk around the block on your own with no assistance? No one to help assist you, or without a walker or anything, just casually walking on your own. Illness. Are you currently on 3 or more medications? And then the last one was loss of weight. Have you lost 5% of your weight within the last 6 months? If you're answering yes to 3 or more of these questions, you're at a very, very high risk of a fracture to take place if a fall happens. If you're answering yes to 1 and 2, you're pre-risk. So you're on your way to developing that high risk factor. But if you can see, I try to highlight it in red. These numbers spell out frail. Frail is someone who's weak. That's the definition, is someone who's weak or delicate. They don't look healthy. So as you get older, your walking speed gets slower, your power production gets lower, your strength gets lower. But what causes all this? Do we just chalk this up to old age? Or is this a result of sedentary living? Is it lack of stimulus, or a combination of a bunch of things that lead to these losses in speed and power and strength? More importantly, what can we do as coaches to reduce all this stuff from happening? That's the $1 million question. Before I talk about what we should do, let's focus on what we shouldn't do. Okay, so I was helping one of our younger coaches at NBSC study for their personal trainer exam, and these were some of the guidelines for training older clients. Hopefully you can see by these pictures, right, that we need to do way better than what these pictures show us. We have some static stretching, we have light pink dumbbells, we have warm-ups on the treadmills, machines. Now, some people need to start here, but we want to get away from this. This should not be the standard we have with our older clients. We should be challenging them a lot more. And that's what you're going to see today. This is how NBSC system of training trains these older clients. So I'm going to let this video play through. All of these are clients of NBSC.
Go.
They're all over the age of 65. So
Go.
I'm going to shut up and let you guys watch this.
And go.
Big Joe. Love Joe. 85 years old. It's a pretty great squad, I would say. Pop is 90. Just working on some balance drills. So guys, as you can see in this video, there's no hand holding. You don't see us putting people on treadmills to walk. We're training them because they need to train for life. These clients are all over the age of 65 years old, but they look and they feel 10 to 15 years younger. Why is that? It's because we take the exact same approach with our older clients that we do with our professional athletes, our college athletes, our high school kids. Now, we don't start here. This is where we want to get to, right? So we're going to talk about the process. Before we get to this point, we need to start easy and start at the beginning. And as you guys know from following us and the CFSC, everything starts with an assessment. We need to assess our clients when they walk in. And everything starts by asking questions, right? So that's that top picture. We make them all fill out a comprehensive intake form to make sure they're cleared to come train with us. If we don't ask, we'll never know. We're just guessing. We want to make sure that if and what medications they're taking. Have they been cleared by their doctors to start training? Is there any side effects to training or increasing their heart rate? So we want to prevent things like heart attacks from happening, or it might be a dehydration issue if they're diabetic. So once you get through all the comprehensive questions and clearance from the doctors, next two questions I like to ask is, number one, why are you here? And what do you want to be able to do is the second one. Why are you here? And what do you want to be able to do? And if you don't ask those questions, you're never gonna get the ball rolling on developing a relationship. Some of our clients are here because their doctor made them to come, right? They were told that if you don't start exercising, you're gonna fall, you're gonna fracture, you're at risk of an injury. Knowing this beforehand helps you tailor your program. It helps you start your conversation, at least at the beginning. From a movement standpoint, right, you see at the bottom right, your FMS. With all our personal training clients, we want to put them through the functional movement screen. We're not saying that's the only screen that you can use or the best screen in the world, but that's what we like to do. We want to put on our binoculars and just see their movement. How do they move when they do a squat or a lunge or a push-up, okay? But with these type of clients especially, we need to put on our coaching hats and our coaching eyes, because the training might be new for them. And with them being 65, we need to be really careful. We want to build success early and as often as possible. So we'll take a modified approach with the FMS. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the FMS, it's a series of 7 movements. And with that, we need to make some judgment calls. You never want to embarrass your clients, especially on the first day. So maybe instead of overhead squat, we have them just do a bodyweight squat. Okay, so no dowel, they just do a squat. Instead of an inline lunge, I'll have them go over to the wall and I'll have them try to just stand on one leg. So I want to see what their single leg balance looks like. The wall is there to help them just in case they lose it. They can feel safe and secure from falling over. And I'll just say, stand on one leg for 10 seconds for me. Instead of trunk stability push-up on the floor, I might elevate their hands maybe to a box or a table. And I'll say, just show me what a push-up looks like. And then another one that I like to ask is, can you get up and down off the ground for me? I want to see how much assistance they actually need. Do they roll over and put their hands down, both knees down? Do they need help with the table to get themselves up? Or can they just simply get down and get back up? That's going to tell you a lot. And we're going to talk more about that, but that's going to tell you a lot about their strength, their mobility, their flexibility, stuff like that. From there, we need to be a bucket filler. We've all heard this before. Coach Brendan Rerick and Coach Boyle have their buckets, right? And the first time I heard that, it was like a bomb went off in my head. I was like, oh, wow, that was brilliant. And the way that I can kind of tailor this into how I think is, when I grew up, I loved playing video games. And this game in particular is Madden. So you could translate this to FIFA. You can create your own player. If you're unfamiliar with the game, there's a feature in the game where you can create your own player. And you get 100 points. And you get to decide how you want to divvy up those 100 points on your player. So for this guy right here, you can do a spin move. You can do a catch in traffic, your speed, your agility, all these different things that develops your players. And that's how I view training. There's not much difference when it comes to training, program design for older clients or athletes. I need to meet them where they're at. I need to assess them. And then I need to decide which attribute or which bucket I need to fill first. But then you want to ask yourself, what's the means and the demands of this person's life or this person's sport? Someone who plays soccer, football, right? They need more speed. They need more power than our grandparents. But that doesn't mean that like we said, our grandparents are losing power, so they still need that too, just not as much. Coach Boyle always says, cookbooks were made for a reason. We need to stick to the recipe, and no matter who walks into your gym, what you believe to be true about strength conditioning and training should be the same across the board. You may vary the exercises, you may adjust the volume and the intensity of the program, but the overall recipe doesn't change that much. So, risk of falling. We're going to talk about motor skills. We're going to talk about strength conditioning. And what do I mean by that? There's a bunch of factors that contribute to falls, right? So we can't just chalk it up to power, strength. Some people may be dizzy. They may not have eaten. They may have had too much medications. So we're going to rule out those factors because we can't really impact that as strength conditioning coaches. So we're going to focus on things that we can actually improve. So, excuse me. So the first thing we're going to talk about are slow walkers. We know when we see it. Someone's gait that's slow is at risk because they're weak, right? Once gait and older clients become slower, their stride length becomes shorter. Okay, so think about this. When you're walking, you're just not moving as quickly. So you start shuffling. Not only do they get their stride length get shorter, they get wider. So they're trying to widen their base of support because they feel like they're going to fall over left to right. When they're asked to walk faster, they'll try to increase the cadence, but their stride length doesn't go any quicker or go any further. So they basically keep 2 feet on the ground at the same time, and they start shuffling or they start scooting. What is that? How do we train that? That's power training. We need to work on powerful hip extension to get them to widen into, not to widen, to further their distance in their stride length. Okay, that's power training. We know how to do that. The second one, if you remember from the lady in the first video of the fall, she was trying to turn. She could not rotate 360 degrees, right? She just can't do this. She can't turn her back or her shoulders. So what does she do? She has to turn her entire body. If you have no rotation, what can we do? We need to work on some thoracic mobility. We know how to do that with strength with our program, CFSC. What's that? Those are rib rolls. Those are T-spine mobility drills, right? That's a mobility bucket. Need assistance up and down. Remember the statistics in the beginning of the presentation. 44% of falls occur from getting up and down off a seated position. What is that? If they can't get up and down off the ground, that's a lower body strength issue. We're going to do that with training. We're going to predominantly train with single leg training because that's going to spare some load onto their low back, but that's a strength bucket. And then the last one that I want to hit home is if it takes longer than 13 seconds to get up and down off the ground. So if you ask a client to get down and get back up, if it takes over 13 seconds, there was research done, over 13 seconds, you're at a very high risk of a fracture to occur if you fall. So, and 13 seconds is a long time, and that's a lot of help to get up and down off the ground. So what is that? Which bucket? I would say that's a little bit of everything. That's power, that's mobility, that's strength. So we need to combine all of our program to help with that. Okay, so these are 3 things that as a coach, when you see your client on that first session, you can see, okay, are they walking slow? Are they having a hard time turning? Do they need help? So I'm always watching as a coach. My coach's eyes are, I'm walking towards the client and they're waiting in the waiting room. I'm seeing how they're getting up and down out of their chair. I'm seeing how long it takes them to get up, walk over to me and shake my hand. So I'm always doing this, and this is going to help me write my program right off the bat. So let's talk about the program itself. So we talked about assessments. Now we're going to talk about building a warm-up. Okay. Three things I like to think about is how am I going to challenge this person's footwork? How am I going to get them to move relatively fast? And how can I change their levels? Because most clients on day one, they can't just jump into our dynamic warm-up. With athletes, we're going to have them do a dynamic warm-up because why? We want to increase core temperature. We want to rehearse the patterns that we're going to do in the workout, in the weight room, but we're also trying to prep their CNS and get them out of just the sagittal plane. And so one great way to challenge an older client's footwork are ladder drills. Now, with ladder drills, I know they get a really bad reputation, but with our older clients, they're awesome. Our clients love them. They have fun with them. Well, not at first. They get frustrated at first because it's hard and they're not used to it. But the more you do it, the more fun they have. They're smiling, they're laughing. It's almost like we're trying to teach them new dance moves, right? We get them. So why is it awesome for them? It's because it gets them to cross the midline. They're not just keeping their feet forward. They're turning their hips, which they never do in their daily life. We get them out of the sagittal plane. We get them to teach them how to eccentrically load. So maybe it's 1-2 stick, and we have them eccentrically load one leg and balance. How's that beneficial? Well, what if they're walking down the street and they don't see the curb and they have to abruptly stop? That is eccentric strength. That is what we can teach and train in the gym to transfer over to their life. It teaches them motor control and how to stabilize. Very important stuff for older clients. Moving fast. Again, this is all relative. How fast I want my older client to move, or my grandparents, or my mom, is a lot different than my college athletes, my professional athletes, my middle schoolers. Because as you get older, you lose your ability to react and to respond like you used to. So Sharon, my client in that first video, was doing a shuffle drill. I say go, she starts shuffling to the right. I say go, she starts shuffling to the left. She's trying to react to me, which is working her nervous system. So now she has to think while she's moving and doing an abrupt stop in an abrupt manner. That's what helps prevent falls. You can find a bunch of different ways to challenge your clients, but you want it to be neurological. You want it to be focused on fastness, power, and coordination. So things like shuffle drills or cone drills, they're fun, they're easy, and they're great for beginners. And then changing levels. Changing levels is about getting up and down off the ground. I stole this from Dan John, one of my favorite coaches. He calls it his get up, get back down drill. And if you're unfamiliar, you should watch it. It's on YouTube. It's so funny. All he does is he tells someone to get down on the ground and then get back up. Get down on the ground and get back up. And he does it over and over again for like 8 to 10 times. And by the end of it, your heart rate is going up and you're like sweaty. And you're like, wow, I just feel like I got a workout in. Now, why is that beneficial for older clients? If they never go there on purpose, then they'll never be able to get it if it happens by accident. If we can practice getting up, rolling to your right side, rolling to your left side, putting your right hand down, we're putting your left hand down. We're building work capacity, which makes a big difference if a fall happens. Whether it's half kneeling, crawling, bear crawls, or lateral crawls, they're all teaching coordination. They're all teaching balance movements, which helps get a better sense of the environment around them and to move more efficiently. Power. So the left side, these are all how we think of power exercises for our athletes. Hang cleans, kettlebell swings, trap bar jumps, dumbbell snatches, explosive jump, box jumps, right? So we have impact, we have non-impact, we have easy to learn, okay? So these are 3 that we do with our athletes. Now, do I want my grandmother to hang clean? Probably not. Kettlebell swing, maybe not at first. I'd like them to, but if they have a history of low back pain, I probably don't want a powerful swing to happen. So if someone has an impact power exercise, I'm going to probably stay away from impact if they don't tolerate it well. And I'm going to do something like a shuttle jump. Now, if you've never heard of a shuttle jump, it's one of the best investments. If you're a trainer who owns a gym, it's probably one of the best investments you can make as a coach. If you train a lot of older clients or injured clients. Why it's really great is because it allows you to deload your client. So it cuts their body weight in half or as much percentage as we want. And we train the same jumping mechanics without the impact of the landing for clients. Now, that's great for older clients because they don't tolerate impact well. You can do that by having the ability to control the resistance. So on the back of the machine, you can control the resistance and how much weight is on it, which is how much impact that loads their tissue, their bones, and their lower body until they feel confident doing things like box jumps or hurdle jumps if you're an athlete. We talked about fear earlier in this presentation. A lot of our clients are nervous about jumping. So this helps them calm their nerves down and gives them a little more of a psychological support because they're in a machine, they're lying on their back, and we can make it really easy for them at first. Instead of a kettlebell swing, exercise that I really like to use with older clients are power skips. Power skips are great because they're very easy on the joints, but still demand powerful hip extension, which directly correlates to gait pattern. Like I talked about, when someone's stride length is very low, we can teach them how to skip and separate and get hip extension, which is very aggressive, hip motion, which can help train a long, powerful stride. It teaches them how to not be stuck on the ground. They get a little bounce and step and pop in their step. Trap bar jumps for athletes, love to use them. With my older clients, not so much. It's a little too heavy for them. Instead of that, I like to do, I call it a sled run. Now, if they're weaker, I don't even load the sled. It's just light. For clients who have a little more strength, I might put one plate on, or a 10-pound or a 25-pound plate. Again, very low risk because there's not much form involved. Very high reward because we're training a heavy lower body extension power drill, which again is going to help with our clients for accidental risk of falls with clients over 65. Now, these 3 drills I really like to use, none other than my Kevin Carr's famous client, Jim, is going to show you great demonstrations of all of them in this next slide. So I'm going to shut up and I'm going to play. Before I play, what are your big rocks, right? For us, jump, throw, sprint. We want to do that with every single one of our athletes. So I think as a coach, when I put on my cap, how can I do this with older clients? How can I get them to jump? How can I get them to sprint? Kind of. How can I get them to throw? And Jim does a really great job in this video. So this is a shuttle jump. Notice he's popping off of that machine and it's not landing very hard. So we got the power skip, powerful hip extension. Jim is 75 years old. He's a beast. Cross behind side toss. I didn't talk about this one, but this is a go-to for mine because it teaches them footwork and gets them out of the sagittal plane, but they're engaged in catching and throwing the ball, so they don't fumble over the footwork. And this is the sled run I was talking about. Right? So again, power skips, jumps with the shuttle jump, med ball throws, and sled runs were all really great options to develop power for aging athletes, is like what I like to call them. So we talked about the power bucket. Now we're gonna talk about the strength bucket. I love this bit. I love this picture, right? Grandma, did you take your meds this morning? I don't think grandma needs to be deadlifting 315 pounds like this in this video, right? But she needs to take her medication, meds, minimum effective dose of strength. When you have a headache or you start to get sick, you don't need to take the entire bottle, right? What does it say in the label? Take 1, maybe 2 if you have a headache. If you have the whole bottle, it's going to kill you. Approach the same thing with strength. They need a little bit of strength. They don't need to be 1 rep maxing or thinking that they need to impress anyone with their numbers, right? I don't want that from this lecture. But we want to have standards, right? How heavy is your client? And you want to be around like 70% of that. If you're there, then you're great. Keep doing that and keep doing that forever. Now, what's your system of training? What's your standard operating procedure? So for us, this is all of our exercises that we'll do at Mike and Boyle Strength Conditioning. And this helps us pick where do we want to start. So I'm going to look at where my cursor is. It says push-up. For older clients, I'm always going to start 1 step behind baseline. Hands elevated push-up. Now, if they can do that, great. We're going to start there, and then we can progress, but I'm not in a rush to progress, okay? Progressions don't need to happen fast. Regressions do. So if I see someone's hands elevated push-up and I don't love it, I'm going to put them back to push-up holds, where they're just going to stand at the top position, breathe, develop some strength at the top, then we'll start eccentrically going down. Another one. What's another one we want to look at? Let's look at kettlebell deadlift. I'm not going to start that. I'm going to start with toe touch progressions. I want to see them. Can you touch your toes? Yes. Great. Next, we're going to teach you how to hinge with a dowel. Once I love how that looks, we go to a kettlebell hinge to load it. Then we'll deadlift. Again, we're going to not skip steps. We're going to take our time, and we're going to develop really good patterns before we load those patterns. By having a system in place, using our templates, we can train anyone at any age. But again, this just talks about progression, regression, progression, regression. People start to think, okay, once the movement looks good, how do I make it heavier? We go goblet. Once goblet looks good, we go to 2 dumbbells. That's not what progressions and regressions mean. We can challenge them differently, okay? So taking progressions and regressions a step further, these are unconventional ways to make them more challenging. So if you follow my cursor, we have bodyweight split squat. If that looks good, right, we're progressing load. We go goblet. We progress dumbbell, 2 dumbbell suitcase. Okay, that's one way to do it. We can also go RFE, goblet RFE, 2 dumbbell, or we can do a dynamic movement of a progress in variation with reverse lunge, goblet, 2 suitcase. You can also do a forward lunge, which has a little more deceleration impact. So this is a little more challenging. Then you go goblet to 2 suitcase. You can also go forward lunge to walking lunge. So there's a bunch of different, as you can see, a bunch of different paths that you can take. Doesn't mean reverse lunge is better than rear forward elevated. It's just whatever direction you feel confident that your client can do. Okay? Now that's up to you and that's up to your client, whatever. There's no right or wrong answer. I can't give you the answer to that. Just remember, we're not training these older clients to have big muscles on the beach that they can show off and look good naked, right? Why are we doing this? Because we're trying to build resiliency in the weight room. And by lifting weights, it's going to carry over to the rest of their life. We call this motor skill mastery. We're trying to put clients into different positions so that when they're at their house, they don't get hurt. When they're going to pick up a laundry basket off the floor, they're like, oh, this is kind of like kettlebell deadlifting that I do with Vinny in the gym. I've done this before. The more we do that, the more it becomes subconscious, and they can just do it with really good form over and over again, so they won't get hurt. Something that strength training also does besides build muscle is it prevents osteoporosis. Okay, so if you're unfamiliar with osteoporosis, look at this bone on the left versus the right. The right side has osteoporosis. See how there's kind of holes and it looks fragile. It's easier to break. It's more susceptible to break because osteoporosis is progressive loss of mineral and bone content, which is extremely important for us to know as coaches because with modern medicine, we're actually outliving the strength of our bones. Think about that for a second. Our clients are living longer, but their bones can't withstand living as long. So this all depends on how you live your lifestyle. Strength training and power training affects the density of the bones, which if you don't strengthen them, they're more susceptible to fracture. So if you fall and hit your shoulder, that bone's gonna break, or your hip will break. So if your client or your family member falls, we wanna make those bones as hard as possible and less likely to fracture. So you have bone helpers, you have bone destroyers. Your bone helpers are strength training. It's really healthy eating habits. So your nutrition, your active lifestyle, going for walks, bike rides, sunlight even helps with bones. You have bone destroyers, alcohol, medication, being in a cast for an extended period of time. Those all weaken your bones and makes you more like that right-sided bone, which you do not want to be. Training is a continuum, right? So we have dependent living, right? So you need someone else. So the left side is dependent. So I'm dependent on your client's dependent on their family members to help them because they're too frail. We have physically dominant, right? So those are professional athletes, physically elite athletes on the right side. We want to see where our client is, and we want to progress them towards the right side of this continuum. We do that with progressions and regressions. At the very least, we do not want to go backwards. You can go backwards. If a fracture happens or a fall takes place and you get hurt, you become more dependent on someone because you broke your leg, or you fractured your hip, or you fractured your shoulders. Hip replacements, knee replacements, that puts you in an extended period of time in a cast. For someone over the age of 65, that's really, really bad. We don't want that. Because training is the springboard for your life. Every time our clients come in to see us, we have the ability to change that person's life. Because of us, someone got to pick up and play with their grandchild for the first time instead of sitting in the chair and watching them run around. Because of us, they feel confident to go for a run, ride on a skateboard, go for a hike with their family. Every single day, we need to empower our clients to live more fulfilling lives. So as they get older, we need them to realize, we need to educate them that it's not time to wind down or go in retirement and sit on the beach. It's time to ramp up, because we don't want these delays of muscle mass or power to go further. We want to delay that stuff. And I'm going to leave you with one more message and one more video to play. Training's training, no matter what age. When you start to treat people like they're old, they start to act and they start to think like old people should act. But as you can see, my man Joe is still doing jumps and still doing throws like our athletes. I don't care whether you play soccer or football, or you carry groceries or do yard work. You need to train for it. You need to train for it as hard as you can and as long as you can. Thank you guys very much for watching this presentation. This is my social media. This is my Instagram. This is my Twitter. This is my email. If you guys ever want to reach me, this is where you can find me. And I hope to interact with you guys after this and after we do our Q&A as well. Thank you.
Very good, Vinny. Very good. Congrats, man. Congrats. I love to see all the athletes and all the clients over there. I miss these guys a lot.
I mean, it's MBSC is a very special place. So I'm very lucky and fortunate to see all this. And whenever we have visitors, I get to see how excited they are to be there, and it makes my job even more enjoyable because I get to interact and meet the best coaches and people, the nicest people in the world.
Yes, I agree. You guys are very, very kind always. And I like to say that this is the Disney word for strength and conditioning coach.
I love that. I love that. I tell people all the time that Felix says that, and it's true.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't see Mickey, but it's okay.
Right.
Well, let's go here. I think we have some question here from Wellington. Do you agree that one of the biggest challenges with the elderly is to change thinking about the ability to exercise? What is often the psychological block itself?
Yes, 100%. One of the biggest barriers initially is them being, like we talked about, they're afraid. They think they're going to get hurt. So we need to educate them when maybe it's sharing an article or having them watch a video of how important it is to strength train, but realize that we're not here to hurt you. We're not going to have you put barbells on your back or trap bar deadlifts. So once they see that you're there to help, you're not there to hurt them, then you start to build a relationship. But it all starts with getting them to be comfortable in the gym because they've never done it before.
And can I add something on this question? Did you have some clients in your experience that these clients, old clients, had bad experience in another place and took some weeks or sessions with you to make this client understand that our process is completely different?
That's great response, Felix. And what I like to do with my clients is I try to introduce them to every single staff member on their first day to show that it's a community. We're friends. People remember your name when you walk in. We smile, we say hello, and then they feel like they're part of the team and they feel like they're a member of our community, which makes people feel comfortable and more enjoyable. We're not here to scream or grunt or make loud noises. We're here because we want to be healthier and live longer lifestyles.
Good, good. I need to reinforce, Bruno, please reinforce people writing at the chat. We need the questions at the Q&A box, not the chat box, please. From Vinny, our Vinny, a Brazilian Vinny
Brazilian Vin.
CFSC.
What's up, Vin?
How many times per week is necessary to see a good evolution on this case? And he sent a big hug for you.
Big hugs, big hugs. The recommended guidelines for strength training is, for a beginner, is two times. So we're going to encourage strength training twice a week. If they can do that, that's great. Once a week, if they've never done it before, 1 time a week, we'll build success, and then we'll try to go to 2. But we're going to encourage them to walk on their off days and try to stretch and do mobility drills. So all that stuff accumulates. We don't want to say 5 sessions a week for someone that's never done it before, because that's going to turn them away. Whatever they feel comfortable with at first.
Okay, good. From Pedro, a teacher at college once told me, if an old person trains with you and keeps on the same level of strength and conditioning, it's a good result. Do you agree with that?
I definitely agree with that. As I said in my slides, the bone content is starting to decay as we get older. So we want to try to preserve that and put as much bone in the bank for as long as possible.
Good. Another question here. Did you have some experience with someone training and fell? If you had, how was it?
During my training session, I have had an experience where we were doing karaoke and they tripped over their feet and they did fall. And I was so happy, and we started laughing because we practiced going down. And she did everything that we've done in our training. So it was good and it was bad, because I don't want to see them fall, but our practice and our habits transferred over to that situation. So in the end, it was a good thing.
Good. From Andressa, how do you guys manage the exercise for lower body with clients that has injuries and clients with pain on their knee?
Yeah. So I am not a rehab or physical therapist or movement as medicine. So if there's pain, I'm going to refer them to Kevin Carr or John Paloff. But for me, if there's pain, we don't do it. So exercises that I like to use instead of knee dominant, we'll do hip dominant. We will do single leg deadlift with reaches. We will do hip lifts on the ground, 1 leg, 2 leg. If that looks good, we can progress to shoulders elevated hip lift. We can push a sled. We're trying to find pain-free movements, and then we progress them to loading those patterns.
Good, good. From Camila was with you at the course in Rio. She asking Vinny about the changing levels. She's talking about the Turkish get up. Can you repeat the name of the coach that you recommend to watch the videos at the YouTube? And
Coach Dan John.
Coach Dan John. Coach Dan John. Oh, I cannot say. I can't say.
Not yet. Don't really.
Yeah, but I almost said, but it's okay. But Coach Dan John, if you want to learn from Coach Dan John, keep watching our posts. Don't miss any posts. This is the better way that I can say. And she said, you on me 10.
Oh, I'm losing you, Felix. 10 what? I'm losing the Wi-Fi. What'd you
Oh
say?
my God.
Are you okay?
10. Can you hear me?
You're coming in and out. No.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. Yes.
Now, can you hear me?
10
Okay,
chin-ups.
10
Okay, I can
chin-ups.
do that. I can do 10 chin-ups.
Okay. From Leonardo.
Wi-Fi's going.
Give the same exercise or keep the same idea. I'm confused here, but he said task is always situation, all exercise, safe coaching or safe movements and care. Okay. What do you think? Can you say? See,
I missed the beginning of.
my internet connections.
Yeah, not too good, Felix. I missed the beginning of the question. I think he said for uh, for exercise selection, we want to progress them as much as possible. But when we load them to a point where they're pretty strong, we need to kind of decide what do we want to do. So that chart that I showed, maybe instead of split squat, instead of goblet load being really heavy, we do something like a dynamic movement, like a reverse lunge or a forward lunge or a reverse lunge, walking lunge. Makes things challenging, and we can keep the weight the same instead of keep going up, up, up.
Um, in Brazil, people are very worried with the health of the body, more about uh, as you mentioned, show up beach with bikini and whatever. How do you suggest that we can do the conquer the clients and at the same time then?
Yeah, that's common not just in Brazil, that's in every country. But by the time clients are 65, they start to understand that we're not just training for the beach. We need to train for the strength and conditioning of their life. But if you're training properly and you're doing all these things, you're going to improve your body composition and you're going to look leaner. Your clothes are going to fit better and you're going to get more confident. So it's a win-win. So you can say, oh yeah, we're training you. You're going to get a nice glutes for you can wear your bikinis and you can have a six packs, but we're also doing a lot of more things that they don't necessarily understand or know. But our job as coaches is to get them to want to come back, not tell them, no, we're not doing that. So you can say yes and keep doing what you're doing.
Good.
Felix, you frozen or no?
Or specific tests for old clients.
What's a specific test for old clients?
Old client, do you just use FMS and the common question questions, tests, and tests for old clients.
So I think I heard what you were asking. Yes, I asked them a few questions at the beginning of our sessions. How are you feeling? How's things going at home? Anything starting to get more difficult for you?
Can you hear me?
A little bit, yes. That's better. But you're going in and out with Wi-Fi. So for clients, I don't want them to feel like I'm always asking them a million questions, but I want to ask about how they're doing outside of training and if they feel like the training is being beneficial to their lifestyles outside the gym. When I do that, I start with a screen at the beginning, only the first time I meet them. But from there, we want to train, and I want to try to develop a relationship with them so they feel confident when they're with me and when they're not with me, which is more important.
Good. Do you still having some problems with my internet?
Yes.
It's really bad. Huh? Sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that, Brazilians friends. With this training, with this exercise, can we recover the postural patterns with this? Instead, the client be compromised. Can we recover the postural patterns and everything?
Of course. But we need to remember, if someone's been doing something for 65 years, it doesn't just happen like this, but we're going to try to educate them. We're going to try to get them to understand why we're doing breathing drills or floor slides. We need to talk to them and tell them why we're doing it before we do it. And we can always improve it, but we just got to temper our expectations. It's not going to be a quick change.
Good. The majority of your clients on this age, 65 up above, everyone does the exercise in groups, or they do individual sessions. What they do prefer?
Yeah. So.
And Pedro is saying congratulations for your awesome presentation here.
Thank you, Pedro. With the older clients, I like to take them one-on-one for the first couple sessions because I want to make sure that they feel comfortable and they're not at risk or in a rush to just jump in a group. But financially, if they can't do personal training, then group training is what we're going to offer them. But we need to make sure that they're not getting rushed and they're not being forced to do things that they're not capable of doing yet. So it's the coach's job to make sure that they're successful.
Good. Another question here. How do you recommend to create the progression for the training with an old client that is getting back from a surgery, like a knee surgery or hip surgery, or sometimes cardio surgery?
There's context, but
cardiac surgery. Sorry.
Yeah, there need more context. I can't just give you an answer because everyone's different. But what we want to do is we want to start with the lowest level on the regression sheet, which makes it the easiest exercise selection possible. So, for example, instead of goblet squats, what I would have someone do is I would elevate the box up. So I put 2 pads on top of the box. I'll give them a TRX, so they'll do an assisted squat. Once they show me they're successful doing that for 5 to 8 repetitions, I'll take a pad away. So now they have to go, we increase the range of motion. So that's a progression, right? It's not just the next exercise. We're progressing, we're getting more range of motion. We're progressing that way. Once I have a full depth, now I get rid of the TRX. So now they have to do body weight. Once they can do body weight, now we can do a load. So there's progressions within the same exercise.
Yeah, this is very
That's the next level thinking.
very clear. This is very clear in our system, right? CFSC has the sheet that you share at the
Right.
slides,
Right.
and people can go easier at the first and much easier regression and start to progress to the next and the next. This is
Exactly.
the beauty of CFSC.
Exactly. And if they're in a
Fabio is
group,
saying,
sorry, Felix, but if they're in a group,
oh,
maybe one person could be doing goblet squats and then your older client could be doing assisted squats. So it makes your job as a coach. You have them both doing the same exercise, but they're doing it a little bit different. That is what the CFSC system really, it does really well.
and always respect the biological individual, right?
Exactly.
Always. So from Fabio here, he's saying congratulations from your topic. He's talking about the stretches and mobilities. These exercises follow the same routine as you see for strength.
Yes. So our template could be the exact same for an athlete or an older client. We just need to substitute out maybe the power exercise. So maybe the athlete's doing a hang clean and the older client is going to do a power skip. They're both going to do front planks. They're both going to do split squats. One's going to do a progression. One's going to do a regression. So it's the same system.
Okay. Um, what do you suggest? Which kind of exercise do you suggest for old clients don't have more the feeling about fall off the ground, about fall off the ground? The MBSC, do you use some body movements, something like we call, I don't know if you call this if you understand this name, but we call natural gymnastic, because people can be more at the ground. I think Strong First has something about, I forgot the name, but it's something about ground reaction force, a program like this. It's basically exercise that will keep clients at the ground and they move at the ground with their own body, exploring this situation. Ground force method. I see someone
Ground force.
writing here.
I'm not too familiar with ground force method. I can look into it and get back to you, but we'll do our mobility drills from the floor. We'll do our leg lowers, our breathing, our floor slides from the floor. And that's kind of all they need to do. We don't want to spend too much time on the floor. We want them to actually just get up and moving and training, because they didn't come here to lay on the floor. They came to get a workout in too. So we need to remember that as coaches. It's part of it. It can't be the entire thing.
Good. Can you explain a little bit more how you guys training for the fall situation?
Well, so we're not going to train the fall, but we're going to train the patterns in the ability you're going to need in case a fall happens. So things like single leg eccentric strength, if you miss a curb, right? We don't need to practice you going out in the street missing a curb, but we can practice you putting on your braking system, doing a 1-2 stick on the ladder. We can practice doing a med ball throw, moving, crossing behind, or turning, because that's what you're going to do if a fall does happen. So we don't need to practice injuries. We need to practice the skills that you need to prevent injuries from happening.
Good.
And if I can try to think of like sports, we don't practice shooting soccer balls. We practice getting your lower body stronger, your rotation, your hips, your explosiveness.
Another question very similar. What is the exercise that you believe better have a relationship with fall prevention or impact absorption? And this guy is Daniel. He's mentioned about TGU, Turkish get up.
I would that was going to be my answer, Daniel. So you're right on. I would say Turkish get up, the ability to roll absorb the shoulder, the hip. Though that's a really great exercise. And it doesn't need to be weighted at first. It could just be their hand. It could be we balance a shoe on the hand or a pad on your fist, and you practice just rolling your body, your core, everything's really getting worked with that. Strength, power, and mobility. But I also like, I would say Turkish get up and then the sled push, because it works your entire body.
When you talk about old clients, do you believe that is better, is Daniel again asking, do you believe that is better have a focus with training more about movements or training about strength? And he's saying that is a guy with feeling a lot of pain that was caused by missing movements and missing strength.
Yeah.
I think he also reply his own question.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. So like the slide showed, muscle loss, strength loss, and power loss, and bone content is starting to decay. So we need to strengthen that. If someone has limited mobility, that's part of the program, but they didn't come just to do mobility. We need to strengthen them too. I would say strengthen first and work on mobility.
Good. About all the clients, if you don't have ability to start with foam roller, because all the clients show many difficulties to use, and some clients feel pain on the cervical, or they don't have strength at the core, how do you recommend to apply foam roller for these clients?
I would try to regress foam rolling. So I'd bring the roller up to the wall, and we can roll against the wall. We can have them massage themselves. Maybe it's their pecs. Maybe they get a lacrosse ball and do it against the wall. Or we could just start stretching. If they don't like it, we can educate them why it's important. And at the end of the day, we don't want to fight with our clients or argue with our clients. So if you need to just start stretching or start with breathing, that's going to help bring the nervous system down into more parasympathetic state, which is what foam rolling does.
Good. Very good question here from Mihail. Do you believe that we have some big problems on the doctor sides in some cases, that they just recommend the clients, the patients on this case, to just walk and do not perform strength exercise, because he doesn't see a lot of people looking for this kind of a training, because when they come back from a doctor appointments, just treadmill walk, no strength.
Yeah, and that's a big issue with what we need to do as coaches and as professionals is bridge that gap. So maybe it's trying to introduce yourself to doctors, or get a system where they can refer people to you, because like Felix just said, just going for a walk isn't good enough. They need to strength train and need to do it properly, because that's not strengthening your bones by going for a walk. It's helpful, but there needs to be more than just that. We need to be the first line of defense for our clients.
Good. Do you guys from Caesar, do you guys use the exercise at the 3 planes of motion, especially the transverse plane?
Yeah, we'll do med ball throws. We'll do ladder drills, which is frontal plane. We try to hit all of them with Turkish get-ups, but you can't start with too much too soon.
Okay. Which kind of adaptation do you guys use for aerobic trainings for old clients, comparing with athletes or clients younger clients?
With our older clients and younger clients, they're still going to both do interval training. So we'll train the anaerobic system, because they only have an hour with us. So we don't want to tell them, oh, go ride the bike for 30 minutes or 40 minutes, because then we'd be doing them a disservice. I try to encourage my clients to go for walks or bike rides on days they're not with me. So now they're working their aerobic system. When they're not with me, they're working their anaerobic system, because we can get a lot of work done in a short period of time.
Good. How do you recommend to work with a client that just had arthrosis at the knee and is getting back from a surgery? Do you recommend on this situation work with power?
So we can work upper body power, maybe a med ball toss. We can work this. So if they just got a knee replaced or they had knee surgery, you still have 2 arms, you still have another good leg, we still have core. So we can still find ways to train. We just have to tailor and tamper back our expectations for right now until you're 100% healthy.
Good. Last question here from
Last one.
Serena.
Who?
Serena, like
Serena.
Serena, the famous Serena.
Serena.
Thanks for your presentation. How many minutes normally is your session with old clients?
All of our sessions at Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning are 1 hour long.
Okay.
We tried to encourage their clients to come in early, to foam roll and to stretch, because if you get that stuff done first, now we can start right at the hour. But we don't want to skip steps. We like Mike Boyle always says, it's a cookbook. You don't skip parts of the recipe.
Good. Very good. Vinny, I think you need to send me back the host power, because I need to make sure that this was recorded.
Make host.
Make me host. Yeah, I am the host.
Okay.
Vinny, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your skills here. Really, really appreciate that, and hope to see you soon again. And let's keep in touch, because we have much more good stuff coming.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was a blast. I want to, just before I log off, I want to say thank you to Felix for setting this all up, guys, and Bruno behind the scenes translating. Without you, this doesn't happen. And Felix for setting this up and being always one step ahead and trying to think critically how you can bring MBSC system and the CFS system to Brazil. You guys do amazing work, and you guys, I thank you guys so much. I'm lucky to call you guys friends. Thank you,
Bruno. Thank you all.
Thank you all for coming. Yes.
Thank you, Bruno. Thank you for everything that we have been doing. And this afternoon we have another crazy guy coming.
He's not as pretty, but he's very intelligent.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.